back again with the Horror Guys. What episode is this?
100.
100. And 100 is cool because we've got 10 fingers, and 10 is 10 times 10 and is 100, and yeah. So 100. It's a nice round number.
I've got 10 fingers on my hands and another 10 in my desk drawer.
Anyway, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about a special episode.
Yeah.
Where we discuss 4 of our all-time favorite movies, 2 apiece.
Well, episode 100, kind of our little soft reboot kind of thing. So probably should introduce everyone to the show.
We talk about horror movies.
We do. Usually 4 horror movies and a short.
And sometimes we do book reviews.
We do really old movies. We do really new movies. We do short films.
We do the oldest of the old movies. We've done the ancient ones.
1910 is our oldest one, I think.
Okay, yeah, there were horror movies before then, but they weren't really much. Bits and pieces and fragments and silent things. But yeah, the first real horror movies. Yeah.
And of course our home base
up to the modern stuff.
Our home base is horrorguys.com, where you can stop in and read every single review we have done is on the site there. Just go and hit the search bar. You can sign up with your email to get on our mailing list. Every new review will wind up in your email.
And we're also fiction writers.
We do write books too.
Brian has written some books about horror movies.
The Horror Guys
books you should check out.
To the Horror Guys Guide to Shock Theater, the Horror Guys Guide to Son of Shock, and Horror Guys Guide to Hammer Horror. And we also have fiction, as Kevin said. We've got Tales to Make You Shiver, Volume 1 and Volume 2.
Short story collections.
We've got our little attempt at a serialized horror thing called Jess and the Monsters, which you can pick that up on Amazon. Science fiction one, we've got Random Acts of Cloning, and I'm forgetting one.
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, yeah.
With
more to come.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More's on the way.
Yeah, and of course, all those books are available at horrorguys.com/books. We'll link you right there.
Wherever fine books are sold.
Yeah, and even where the bad books are sold. We don't care. We can buy our book. All right. Well, this week we've decided. Normally we will do like an old classic film and a middle of the road like 70s or 80s film and a more modern horror film and usually something else too.
And sometimes, almost always, it's a mix of things we like and don't like, and sometimes some are meh and some are. And this week, we like them all.
Yeah, our goal is to bring you the movies that we like and the movies we don't like. All the horror films you'll get our opinion of. And every week there's something that we both hate.
It seems like it.
Every week there's something that we like.
Almost, yeah.
But we decided for episode 100, we would pick our top 2 horror films.
And boy, was that hard to pick. And there's really still others that we really, really like. But these kind of seem to be our 4. And it almost feels like I got to pick 2 and 2 because I agree with Brian's choices too.
Yeah, this is like your top 4.
Yeah.
Actually, after watching your top 2, I think they might be my top 4 also.
Yeah.
I think at this point we should probably shoot to try to have all of our top 10 this year.
I'm in favor of that.
I don't know what those top 10 are exactly. It's hard to narrow them down.
We can work
But
on
I know we got one of them coming up in a few weeks that we both like a whole lot. Involves metal balls, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't make our top 2.
But it's in the top 10. And the sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, all of these have sequels. They're just that good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this time we're going to start out with the original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Then we're going to go far, far away with Alien from 1979. Take you straight to hell with Hellraiser from 1987. And then we're going to get a little colder outside with The Thing from 82.
And I think that all 4 of these choices, there's a little bit of nostalgia involved too, given our ages and the ages where we started watching horror movies as adults or semi-adults.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a nostalgia factor. But
we were both in high school
all 4 of them,
the 80s.
We watched them all again, and they all held up pretty darn good.
And several of the really good ones we're going to get into in the next couple of weeks were right around that same time zone. Late 70s, earlier 80s. That is my golden age of horror.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. So first up we have A Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's the oldest, the ones we're going to look. It's not the oldest. No,
No,
is older.
Alien
Okay.
is, yeah. Johnny Depp's first film debut.
Yeah, this is Kevin's number 2 film of all time. Number 2 horror film of all time. And after watching it, I reappreciate how good it was. I'm like, oh man, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well,
I've seen too many of the sequels that
have
are
not all been that good.
The sequels are silly and dumb.
They get sillier.
Yeah,
he gets funnier, and I think that took a lot away from it.
Yeah, there's nothing
He's
funny
not
in this
very
one.
funny in this one.
No, he does not
very
have
funny
any
at all.
quips or one-liners.
And actually, my favorite of the sequels is Freddy versus Jason, which is the double sequel crossover between I think of all the Friday the 13th sequels and all the Nightmare sequels. That's my favorite.
I've only seen that one once. I need to see that again.
I've seen that a couple times. Yeah.
Okay, well, the original is 1984, directed and written by Wes Craven, stars Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp, and Robert Englund. Hour and 31 minutes. And there's an Amazon link in the show notes if you need to pick up a copy that you haven't seen. All right.
So it's going to be full of spoilers, but by this time we figure you've probably seen it.
Yeah, all of our shows, all of our reviews are usually spoiler-free unless the film is really new or has something that we want to save for you. But we do spoiler-intensive reviews.
Yeah, we do.
So this time, it's one of your favorites. You want to read the...
I could read Okay, we open... Oh, it opens with Freddy, a man in a red sweater breathing heavily, and he's making his claws, his hand razor glove.
Santa Claus?
No, not exactly, but he's got the red sweater. No. So anyway, it's kind of interesting showing how he makes his razor finger glove. And then the credits roll as a girl runs through a creepy corridor in what looks like a factory. And she's terrified, and the glove man with his razor fingers is following her. She is Tina, and she wakes up. And it was just a dream.
It wasn't real.
So she's okay, yeah. But when she wakes up, her nightgown is all slashed up, where Freddy slashed her in the dream.
Her mother sticks her head in the window and says, "You really need to cut your fingernails."
Yeah, either cut your nails or cut out those dreams. And then she's reminded of an old jump rope song. You should sing the jump rope song.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab a crucifix. 7, 8, you better stay awake. 9, 10, he's back again.
Or something like that.
I cut and pasted it. I looked it up.
Okay. See, and I misremembered it. I didn't know it was exactly like that. Yeah.
Yes, I think it is exactly like that.
Okay. See, I was thinking it was 9, 10, never sleep again. So I wonder if it's different.
Oh, maybe they changed it to
different
later.
in some of the sequels
verses.
and things.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tina is friends with Glenn and Nancy. And Nancy tells her dream, and it's the same thing with a creepy guy with a red sweater with pointy fingers. And Glenn looks on, and he doesn't admit it, but he did too. Now Rod, the high school's major creep, stops over and wants to do something nasty with Tina.
What? What do they want to do?
Teenagers and all, yeah. And they were almost teenagers in this movie. almost all of them were mostly teenagers.
They had all been teenagers once.
Yeah. While Nancy and Glenn talk about other things, they've got a more platonic relationship than Tina and Rod do. And Rod has also been having nightmares. All 4 of them. Huh. Well, that night, the wall above Nancy's bed starts to stretch. And Tina has the same dream again. Tina goes out to the alley behind the house and sees Freddy with really long, creepy arms. That was a neat effect.
Like, I'm reaching out for you.
But that was the moment I remember that it really did it for me too. Because one of the things Freddy does, he says, "Hey, Tina," and waves his non-gloved finger and chops his own fingers off. And at that point, he's like, "What are you going to do against this guy? You can't fight him. You can't hurt him." That was the moment where I went, "Oh crap, she's doomed. They're all doomed."
You can't fight a dream.
Yeah, what do you do again? At least with the other monsters and
A stake through the heart,
bad
or
guys
something,
and things.
yeah.
There's something you can do, but what do you can't, if he's doing that to himself, what are you going to do to him? Anyway, Rod wakes up and sees her body twitching, covered with blood, and rolling around on the ceiling because Freddy got her in the dream.
Yeah, how do you roll around on the ceiling in your sleep? That's a good trick.
She was getting thrown all over the place. Well, Lieutenant Thompson and the police investigate, and they, of course, immediately assume that Rod murdered her. He's kind of a hoodlum and got a record, and, well, it was the two of them alone. So
He's a hoodlum because he's got a leather jacket in the 80s.
Yeah, it was clearly. Yeah, yeah. Now, Nancy, he's Nancy's father, too, the police guy. The chief of police. Is he the chief? Yeah, I think he is.
He's in charge. I don't know if he's technically the chief or the lead detective.
But anyway, that's Nancy's father, and of course he's not happy about her being in the house with a bunch of teenagers and, with this murder going on, in the next room. But Nancy explains about the nightmares, and he doesn't believe any of it, and he arrests Rod.
Simplest explanation is usually the truth.
Yeah. Well, the next day, Nancy drops off to sleep during class, and she's alone in the school, and she gets up, goes out into the hall, follows a trail of blood to the boiler room, and finds Freddy, who chases her. And she burns herself on a pipe, and wakes up back in class screaming, and she has the real burn on her arm that she got in the dream.
Wait, you get hurt in the dream? It carries over?
Yeah, you do.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, later on, there's an awesome scene. Nancy's mother warns her not to fall asleep in the tub because you could drown.
Oh, stop that. That can't happen.
Yeah, well, she does, and she has another Freddy dream, and suddenly the tub is 10 feet deep, and that was a pretty cool, intense scene, too. Well, Nancy gets Glenn to watch her while she sleeps. They live across the street from each other. And in her dream, she walks to the police station and sees Freddy going after Rod in his cell. And she also sees Tina, who is being devoured by worms, which is one of Freddy's visions that he causes. Freddy chases Nancy back home, and they do battle in the dream. But, it's crossing over to the real world, and Glenn, loser, has fallen asleep instead of watching.
He was supposed to be watching.
Keeping watch. But luckily, just in time, her alarm goes off, wakes her up. Yeah.
Saved by the bell.
Yeah. But in the meantime, Rod is still asleep, and he gets strangled by a sheet. But it looks like suicide. Freddy made it look like suicide, like he hung himself with a sheet.
Wait, he hung himself in his jail cell, and they said it looked like suicide?
Yeah.
But it could never happen in real life.
But the thing is, it was Freddy that did it. So Nancy describes Freddy to her parents, and they kind of give each other a look, like, that sounds familiar.
Okay,
But really, no, it's nothing. So Nancy's mother takes her to a psychologist who specializes in sleep disorders and puts her in a sleep lab and wires her up to the machines so they can monitor her sleep. And Dr. King explains that we don't know what dreams are or where they come from. And Nancy starts to dream, and it gets a little restless, and she wakes up, and this time she's got a hat with her. What? And the name Fred Krueger is written inside it.
Well, that's random. It couldn't possibly be connected to... Who? What? Fred Krueger. She didn't make that up.
Yeah. Well, her mother still, was in denial, like, no, this can't be real. There's no such person as Freddy. No.
At this point, after we find out what happens later on, the mother should have been all over this.
Yeah, she wasn't. Not right away. Yeah. So anyway, Nancy starts loading up on coffee, and she's terrified of going to sleep. And then the mother fesses up. And she says, there's no way that Fred Krueger is coming after you because Mommy killed him. And then tells the story of Fred Krueger was a child murderer, and he got off on a technicality, and the neighborhood parents banded together and killed him, burned him to death. And The mother even has his razor glove. She kept as a
rusted
souvenir.
and falling apart and getting moldy down in the oven.
Hidden away. Yeah. So it can't possibly be Fred Krueger because he's dead, and their parents know that. Yeah. Well, except so. Oh yeah, she meets Glenn again, and he starts talking about dream skills, where you can control your dreams. And she is reading a book on booby traps and improvised anti-personnel devices. So she's learning some new dream skills.
Get that at the school library, do you think?
Oh, yeah, probably, yeah. Well, when Nancy gets home that day after school, there's bars on all the windows. And, that's when her mom tells the full story. Yeah, and fesses up. But she said that, we're going to lock you in and you'll be safe and, no more dreams and, just go to bed. You'll be fine. Yeah. Well, Nancy wants to bring him out of the dream the same way she brought the hat. So she arranges to meet up with Glenn at midnight, but Glenn goes to sleep. And she tries calling Glenn, and his parents run interference, and he's asleep, and Nancy knows what's going to happen, and
she can't get out because of the bars on the windows.
She can't get out because of the bars on the window, and she can't reach Glenn, and Freddy gets him. Yeah, he's basically eaten by his own bed. Yeah, and it rains blood. I mean, it's like a blood.
It's
bath.
A mess.
Yeah,
it's a real mess. Yeah.
The paramedic has the greatest line: "You don't need a stretcher up there. You need a mop." So Nancy tells her father everything, and she wants him to come over and get Freddy when she brings him out of the dream world. And he's like, yeah, whatever, I'll come over in 20 minutes, just go to sleep. And he doesn't believe a word she says. But he does tell one of the cops, watch the house, just to make sure, and, whatever. And then he goes inside Glenn's house to do his police and stuff there. And Nancy goes to sleep and finds a basement beneath the basement. And she has everything timed on her watch for when Dad is supposed to come rescue her. And he doesn't show.
He's busy with the murder scene.
Yeah. But Freddy, on the other hand, does come into the real world. She grabs him and wakes up, and she's got booby traps.
It's Home Alone.
Yeah.
With Freddy.
Home Alone, the Freddy version. Yeah. And she screams at the window and breaks the window to get the attention of the cop across the street, who's a real doofus. And, there's the house is on, you can see smoke because some of her booby traps have started a house fire. She's smashing the windows, screaming. He's like, oh, maybe I should tell the chief about this. Duh, you think? Yeah. So anyway, she sets Freddy on fire and throws him down the basement stairs. Problem solved. Well, her dad hears the screaming and finally comes to the rescue, breaks in, and he and Nancy watch. There's flaming footsteps coming up the basement where Freddy came up and gets the mother, who burns up in bed and vanishes. And then, could he have done that in the real world? That doesn't seem quite right. Yeah. But Nancy suspects she hasn't woken up at all. It's like a dream within a dream.
It's a dream still.
Yeah. And then Freddy appears, and she denies that he has any powers over her, just like Glenn suggested in the dream talk. And he vanishes. Yeah, problem solved. And then she goes outside, and it ends poorly for everyone.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but it's is it still a dream within a dream? Is she still dreaming? And you don't know for sure. You're kind of left wondering.
Well, she did bring that hat back through with her. What if she could have brought him back through? Would he be like undead? Would he live again?
That's a good question. Would he be alive again?
Is that a trick?
Would he have
a pathway to immortality?
Would he have to eat and go to the bathroom again?
Yeah, just
like
all
a person
alive.
again? Yeah, don't know.
All right, so obviously you like this one. It's your number 2 favorite film. And I think this one, the first one here, succeeds so well because it does have a little humor.
Just a hint.
It takes itself very seriously. We don't know who the killer is or why he's doing all this stuff until the very end. So there's a lot of mystery involved with this new monster. What is this thing? Freddy says a few words, but he's mostly silent and very dangerous.
Yeah, he's not quipping Freddy.
Yeah, the stupid wisecracks didn't come until later films. He's got some very limited powers in the real world, but can do just about anything in the dreams. The production values are really high, and the soundtrack is awesome. The acting is mostly good. John Saxon gets top billing, but he's not really in it very much until right at the end. And still, I think it's the mysteriousness of Mr. Fred Krueger that sells this one. One factor that doesn't apply to any of the silly sequels.
Yeah, not so much.
This is one of those familiarity breeds contempt. We get to know too much about him. He got to be too silly and too funny, and no.
Yeah, the sequels I don't think were as good. So I was still entertained by them, most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen the new remake.
No.
Jackie Earle Haley one.
We need to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Some of these films I don't look forward to.
We are reluctant because how could it be better than the original was?
It can't be.
It can't be, and I heard it wasn't actually.
Yeah.
Harsh reviews.
When has there been a direct remake that has actually been better than the original?
Not that I
like the
think
Psycho,
of, really.
that was an exact remake.
Well, that was just weird. That wasn't really a remake. It was like a copy.
It's very pointless, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some remakes like The Fly, the second one is better.
That was very good.
That's another one that's probably in the top 10. We've already reviewed it. You can go back and find that one in an earlier podcast. 1986 is The Fly.
They updated. Well,
way better than the original.
And one of our ones we're going to be talking about, The Thing.
The Thing?
That's a remake.
Is it though?
Yes.
It's so different. Oh, I know it is.
But it's the same thing. It's based on the same story. Thing from another world.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Best movie of all time, in my opinion. So I must like remakes.
Yeah.
Well, one that hasn't been it sort of has. Alien, 1979.
Hasn't been remade. It's been sequeled and
sequelized
sequeled and prequeled. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a real hard time deciding between this one and The Thing, but I think The Thing just beats it out as horror.
Yeah, a little bit.
My favorite sci-fi film? It could be Alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right on the edge of both. It's one of those things. Horror bleeds over into a lot of other genres.
Yeah, it does.
And you can have Old West horror, you can have romantic horror, you can have outer space horror. Yeah. And here we head into the little sci-fi realm a little bit. Directed by Ridley Scott, written by Dan O'Bannon, stars Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, and a cast of people who were kind of nobodies, but all got really big after this.
They all had good careers.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Runtime, hour and 57 minutes. So, what's your thought? Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it, yeah. Yeah, I saw it at the theater when it came out and loved it then and still love it. Yeah.
I didn't see this in the theater, but I did see this back in the days, early 80s, I guess. Before people owned their own VCRs, I went to the video rental store and rented a beta player.
Ooh.
A Betamax VHS player to watch this.
I watched it at somebody's house on Laserdisc. It was out on Laserdisc.
Well, Laserdisc was actually pretty good.
Oh, super good quality. It was kind of a pain having to turn the disc over through most movies, because the capacity. I don't know what the length is on a Laserdisc.
DVDs are the same way.
You'd have to
flip.
You'd have to flip it partway through.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Okay, well, you liked it. Yeah. I liked it. Alien, the end.
We liked it. Yeah.
Oh, we need to say more? Okay. After the slow, creepy title sequence, kind of sounds like a John Carpenter opening, we're told that the story takes place aboard the commercial towing vehicle, the Nostromo, which is carrying 20 million tons of mineral ore. And you say in the movie novelization it was oil?
The novelization said it was petroleum product
okay.
That they didn't use it much for fuel anymore, but it was still priceless for plastics and industry.
All right.
I remember that being mentioned in the novelization.
Well, that's one of those things the environmentalists always say when we run out of oil,
Go to another planet for oil.
Well, no. No, I mean, everybody talks about changing the energy usage and stuff, but they really don't mention plastics.
Yeah,
that's
industry.
A major thing for plastic.
A lot of industrial use besides plastics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very possible we may.
Lubricants, I mean, all kinds of things that petroleum products are used for. Yeah.
You go out and mine oil in the space. Of course, you got to find planets where dinosaurs died out millions of years ago.
Yeah. I told you about that. It was just kind of a fun thought experiment that one of the big oil companies did at some conference. Is there oil on other planets? And the guy was like, there could be.
It's a non-zero chance.
But, the conditions would have to be just right, and, because it's all that plant material and a small amount. It's more plant than...
You got to have life on that planet first.
Yeah, life that died out in a layer that, has been pressurized in the right geological conditions. And, yeah, it could happen.
But this is not a science documentary.
No, it's not.
So the camera walks us through the empty ship. Suddenly a control panel lights up and numbers appear on a screen. A computer has made a decision. It's time to wake up the 7-person crew. After they have a meal and recover a bit, Captain Dallas goes through a process to talk to the computer named Mother. "Where's Earth?" asks Kane. He's looking out the window and it ain't there.
Yeah, they're all manning their stations and calling Antarctica base, and why aren't they answering? And,
well, they don't know, but they're clearly not anywhere near Earth. They've awakened early.
Yeah, she finds it on the map finally, and like, where's Earth? Oh, there it is, way out there.
And we take a few minutes to learn who the crew are. We start out with Brett and Parker. They're the workmen, and they're always complaining about their shares and doing the grunt work. Dallas explains that they stopped because Mother intercepted an unknown transmission, possibly non-human. And through all the series that comes later, we don't know if they've run into other alien species. I mean, it's kind of implied that they haven't, but they never really say that. We don't know that humans are the only thing.
The Marines, I think, in the second one.
Another bug hunt.
Yeah,
yes,
another bug hunt.
Yes.
They were joking about, So I think there
are
some
other,
kind of alien, maybe not intelligent, but that wasn't clear, but yeah.
We're not talking Star Wars, where every planet's got its own weird thing.
No.
Well, Ash, the science officer, points out that if they don't check it out, they're all going to forfeit their shares. Well, they pinpoint the signal to a very small planetoid, like 1,200 kilometers across, and set a course. They launch their shuttle from the Nostromo and head down to the planet.
And this ship is so big. I mean, they leave the main part parked up in orbit where the cargo is.
For a long time, I thought it was like a little shuttle, but I think that's the entire living quarters went down with them.
Yeah,
all they did was leave the cargo up there.
Yeah. But just that the part they're in is gigantic.
Yeah,
the living part, and and that's just a teeny part of the Nostromo.
There's a scene from outside
really cool.
where you can see them walking around through the window, and it's just huge.
Yeah.
So 3 people suit up and go outside into the stormy wasteland of the planetoid. They soon find a ship that turns out to be clearly alien. They find the pilot, also clearly dead from decompression long ago.
And all dried out and desiccated.
Kane finds a cargo hold full of eggs. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Ripley decodes the transmission. It's not an SOS, it's a warning to stay away. Kane watches one of the eggs open, and he gets a surprise.
Doesn't realize they're eggs. Yeah.
It looks like an egg.
Yeah.
Especially when it starts moving, you're like, hey, that's an egg.
Hey, that looks like an egg.
Well, when the 3 return to the Nostromo's launch, Ripley doesn't want to let them in due to the quarantine protocols. But Ash opens the door anyway. Kind of a little twit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut the helmet off, and there's a weird creature attached to Kane's face. Ash warns that cutting it off may kill Kane, but Dallas insists that they keep trying. They slice it open and quickly learn that it has acid for blood, and the acid eats through 3 decks.
Before it fizzles out and stops.
That's a pretty cool juice.
So let's not cut it off anymore.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And at some point in the night, the facehugger releases Kane and crawls off to die. They're sure that it's dead, so they take off and return to the Nostromo. Kane soon wakes up and everything is good. The end.
Happy ending for everybody.
Well, that is until they sit down to dinner.
For one last meal before hibernation again.
And you know what happens. A new alien pops out of his chest. It runs away after singing and dancing. That was Spaceballs.
No, that was Spaceballs.
Okay.
I read the most awesome story about the filming of that scene. That William Hurt his upper body was really his shoulders and head, of course, and he was all bent down under the table with a hole in the table, and then a prosthetic body from the chest down. and it was really uncomfortable. And they were having a hard time setting up the effect and everything. And he was getting all pissy and uncomfortable. So they were giving him sips of wine with a straw, and he's half crocked in that scene. And the others in the crew knew something was up and something was going to happen, but they didn't fully tell him or show him ahead of time. And a lot of their reactions are genuine, and they get splattered. They weren't expecting to get splattered, and you know that their reactions are very realistic, and there's a reason.
Well, they're all surprised by the creature, and it runs away. They don't chase after it, but then they have to go find it because, yeah, it's running loose.
Yeah, I can't just go back to sleep with it.
And we get the one and only jump scare of the film, where the cat hisses at Brett, and he lets Jonesy the cat get away, but then he has to go after it, otherwise it's going to mess up their sensors.
Yeah, they've got these motion sensor things that they're using to try to track it.
But he gets lucky. He finds the creature, which has gotten a lot bigger and a lot hungrier. Maybe that wasn't lucky.
And this is just filmed so brilliantly.
It is, yes. Yeah.
His reaction and the way he looks up and oh. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Dallas gets a flamethrower and starts hunting through the very large air ducts. Boy, those are big air ducts.
They sure are, yeah.
Movie trope.
Big ship.
Well, yeah.
Big ship need big ducts.
The others watch on their little motion detector screens as it takes him away.
Yeah.
Ripley goes to talk to Mother the computer. Special Order 937 states that alien life forms must be retrieved. Crew expendable.
Oopsie.
Suddenly, Ash is there threatening her. She freaks out and hits Ash, who has some kind of murderous breakdown. What's the deal with the magazine? I've always wondered what he was trying to do there. He rolls up a magazine and tries to shove it in her mouth. That's not going to kill her.
I think because he was kind of losing it. I mean, well, I think part of it...
It's the most random way to kill someone ever.
No, I think, and I thought it before in other times that I've seen it, and he's actually a benign android. He's probably got some
I'm sure he's supposed to be, yeah.
Probably got some kind of, first law of robotics, you shall not kill people, but he's also got this overriding order.
Crew expendable.
And I think he was, all the jerkiness, and you could see how twitchy he was getting and losing it. And I think that, we got to kill her, got to stop her, and that's what he grabbed. And, it was a stupid way to try to do it, but I think he was not functioning and not thinking clearly. And anyway, it's a weird way he tries to kill her. Yeah. Jamming a magazine down her throat to choke her with it.
She notices that he has white blood. He's an android. Parker and Lambert intervene, and Ash really blows a circuit. They figure he wanted the alien for the weapons division. Since Ash had been protecting the creature all along, well, they wake up his disconnected head, and he says, "Hey, you're all doomed."
Yeah.
Ripley gets the shuttle ready, while Parker and Lambert go off for some coolant. Ripley then goes after the cat, which is never a smart thing to do.
Well,
let the cat go.
Well, you didn't say why they're getting the shuttle ready. It's an escape shuttle.
Oh, yeah, they're going to blow up the ship.
It's a much smaller ship. They're going to self-destruct the main ship and
then
fly off in the shuttle and hope they get picked up and rescued.
She finds the cat, but the alien finds Parker and Lambert. Boy, there's a lot of screaming.
Yeah.
That actress, I mean, if you've ever seen her in anything else...
She's a screamer and a crier.
Oh, yes, she is.
She screams and cries really well. She's good at her job.
Well, this part requires some crying.
Hey, who can we get?
Ripley then activates.
Well, that's not what all she's about, but she does a lot.
A lot of that.
A lot of her roles have, Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah. I don't know. I think just about everything I've seen her. She screams.
Well, she's very good. Yeah.
Okay, and was this Yaphet Kotto's first big role?
I think it was.
Or was no, Live and Let Die.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That came before this.
That came before this, yeah.
And that was a much bigger role, if you remember how that ended.
Yeah, I think it did.
He inflated.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he did.
I'm sure he did other things.
Quite a few things before this.
Okay. Yeah, again, everybody from this went on to do big things.
Mm-hmm, many things.
If they hadn't done much before.
Many things after it, yeah.
Okay, so Parker and Lambert are toast. Ripley then activates the most complicated-looking self-destruct system ever shown on film.
Well, they want to make sure it doesn't get set off accidentally, and they do. I mean, there's
yeah.
a lot
What
of
a
steps,
hassle.
to activate it. Yeah,
And then it's so slow to turn off later.
well, basically, it's pulling the control rods out of the reactor.
Yeah,
So the reactor's going to overheat, and you've got 10 minutes to reinsert the rods to stop the reaction.
Yeah, which are really slow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it gives her a 10-minute countdown. On the way out, Ripley passes a nesting area for the alien, where she finds Brett and Dallas still mostly alive and impregnated with baby aliens.
And they had
This was an added scene,
Yeah,
right?
that wasn't in the original theatrical release.
Yeah, so yeah,
They put it back in.
we see Dallas disappear out of the tunnels. All we see is, the beep, beep, beep little tracker things, and he's dead. We assumed he's dead.
When we assume they're all
We
dead.
saw the monster grab Brett, and we assumed he was dead.
No.
And now we see both of them later on.
Alien is impregnating them.
I think Brett is dead at this point. I didn't see him moving.
No, he didn't move, but Dallas was still alive.
Very much. Yeah, they're kind of grown into the walls so they can't escape. Dallas moans, "Kill me," which she does. Then there's a lot of running around in steamy corridors when she finds the alien is between her and the escape shuttle. She can't turn off the self-destruct fast enough, so she has no other time but to make a run for it.
Yeah, she's so close. She puts the rods back in. It's like 2 seconds too slow. And it doesn't blow up immediately, but Mother says it's too late for remedial action.
So it's a 10-minute countdown. She sets the self-destruct, runs to the ship, finds out she can't get there, runs back to turn the self-destruct off, can't do it, so then she has to run back to the ship again.
But fortunately, the alien is gone that time.
But all the strobe lights have kicked on triple time.
Oh yeah, lots of steaming and flashing.
Yeah. Well, she makes it to the shuttle and gets everything. This is not your epileptic film, for sure, with all those flashes.
Yeah, could be a danger.
She makes it to the shuttle and gets everything ready to go with 1 whole minute to spare. She launches, but the huge explosion almost gets her.
Yeah, it's mighty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, the Nostromo's been destroyed, so everything must be safe now. Except, of course, it's never that simple.
No, there's
She
an alien
soon
on
finds
board.
out that the alien is stowed away.
Hiding in the corner.
Yeah. All
And-
right.
And there's one final hilarious scene. Which is very cool. Also, all this movie's so cool. There's so many cool scenes.
And you see something new almost every time you watch it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's a lot of details.
Yeah, real attention to detail.
Yeah. In the first shot with the crew, Kevin immediately noticed how young everyone looked.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that John Hurt? He looks like he's in his 20s.
Well, it was 40 years ago, so yeah.
He looked really, really old before he died like 10 years ago. So, yes, Ian Holm had darker hair, and he looked really old when he died 10 years ago.
They all looked really young.
Yeah. Sigourney Weaver's still alive. Tom
Skerritt wasn't gray yet.
Harry Dean Stanton has been dead for 10 years or so. Is Yaphet still alive?
I think he was, yeah. I think I looked at his...
Yeah, I haven't seen him in anything in forever. So
Kodo. Yeah, uh-huh.
Oh, still alive.
Born
Okay.
in 1939, yeah.
Well, they did better in real life than they did in the movie, because, yeah, they all died.
Last thing he did was he did the voice of Parker in an Alien video game in 2014.
Oh, okay.
So he hasn't worked in a while.
Characters that died in 1979 are still doing video games.
That's cool.
All right. Well, yeah, all these actors became iconic after this film. The ones who are still alive are all really old today. So what was this, 42 years ago?
Veronica Cartwright was born in 49.
Okay. The computer graphics on the controls are really dated looking, but you can't argue that this would be built for heavy-duty durability, so it's made for functionality. I mean, they use those crappy old computers on the space shuttle for 30 years, and
They don't.
they're made to be durable, not
where you
high-tech.
don't need a lot of computing power. Yeah.
Yeah, you want functionality, not necessarily the cutting edge.
Right.
So other than the computer stuff, all the sci-fi elements look good and have aged well.
And it's all practical effects, no CGI to be found.
Yes. That's the benefit of a 79 movie.
Yeah.
The setting really makes this one. The ship is huge, yet the living area...
It's so huge, and yet it still manages to be claustrophobic.
All those
and
tiny little
give
corridors and air ducts.
A terrible sense of them being trapped. And
Yeah, even the lunch they take to the planet is immense. Everything is dirty and well used, while the technology is futuristic but lived in. The camera shows us that there could be danger around every creepy, dark corridor. The cast is small, and I think this is the secret of the movie. The cast is small, and we quickly learn everyone's names and their jobs, which also means we can get invested in the characters at least a little bit. How many movies have we seen since Alien where there's a handful of crew and they all have their names on their jackets and they all call each other by their name? They're emulating this. They want you to know those characters' names.
Yep.
And how many times have I been reviewing, typing these things up, and we're like 30 minutes in, and I'm like, what's that character's
What's that guy's name? Yeah.
We don't know.
Don't know, because they said it once. And yeah.
Dark-haired girl number 1, dark-haired girl number 2. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't really get to know much about these people. I mean, I don't know what Parker's first name is, but we can easily tell them apart, and they all have distinctive personalities. And that's another thing with a lot of horror movies. When you get the ones where they all look like models, they all kind of look similar.
Sometimes.
Oh, look,
yeah.
it's a pretty blonde. What, didn't she die 20 minutes?
No, that was the other pretty blonde.
Yeah. The chest burster scene couldn't be any more intense, largely due to John Hurt and Yaphet Kotto's reactions. The battle with Ash is almost as good. It's one of those WTF moments in a film that no one saw coming. They run all over the ship with the flamethrower, but no one ever gets a shot off where it matters. Would the fire have even worked? We'll never know. The pacing, rising tension, the sets and creature design, all three of them. You got an egg, you got a face hugger, you got a little baby creature, and you got a big creature. That's actually 4. Mm-hmm. And the characters all make this one of the best horror films ever. And you know what? When you told me what your number 1 film was, I'm like, yeah, okay, I should have thought of that.
Hellraiser. Clive Barker.
Hell yes, Hellraiser.
Clive Barker has written so many cool things, and yeah, and he wrote.
But he directed
wrote
this
Hellraiser
one
and directed. Yeah. So we begin in a market somewhere in Asia, and Frank.
Who's in it?
Frank.
Who's in this film?
Who's in this box? Oh, we're supposed to talk about that. Okay.
Written and directed by Clive Barker, stars
Andrew Robinson, Claire Higgins, and Ashley Lawrence.
Hour and 34 minutes. Yeah, I saw this one in the theater when it came out.
Yep.
One of the few.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah. And, there's Frank, and then there's Monster Frank. They were two
different actors,
yeah,
yes.
Which at the time I did not realize, but later I did.
Well, in the beginning, later when he's got no skin on and stuff, he doesn't look like Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lack of skin will do that to you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. They probably went with somebody who had a really thin face or something so they could put the prosthetics on right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, in a market somewhere in Asia, Frank buys a golden box from the peddler. It's yours. It always was, states the seller.
What does that mean?
Well, at home, Frank works the box. He's shifting and dialing and trying to open it. It's a really complicated puzzle box, and success. But then lights surround the room, and strange noises emanates, and he hits the right or wrong combination. And fish hooks on chains dart out of the walls and start ripping him apart.
If you've ever had a fish hook stuck in your skin, yeah, that's an especially cringeworthy scene.
Mm-hmm. And then we see basically some time has passed. The room becomes different, and it's a dark place with creepy-looking, pasty-faced creatures, or Cenobites. We don't know that yet. But and one of them takes the remnants of Frank's face and reassembles it. And Pinhead resets the box, and the room reverts to normal.
Like resetting a trap
for
the
basically.
next one.
Yeah, uh-huh. Well, later, Larry and Julia come to the house. Frank's been gone for quite some time. Frank was Larry's brother. Larry likes the house, but Julia says, well, it's better than Brooklyn. And she's pretty
Most places are.
Pretty reluctant, yeah. There's a lot of religious
iconography.
Thank you. Yes, around the house. And Julia doesn't care for that. Larry talks to his daughter, Kirsty, while Julia goes through Frank's stuff. He's been kind of, it looks like he's been squatting.
Not exactly a horror. Yeah, it looks more squatty than a horror.
Yeah. But they move in. It's a real mess. The kitchen is just awful, and the mattress apparently the room where Frank died, from the look of it, is all bloody and oogie. And so anyway, they get things cleared away. Well, Julia and Kirsty don't get along very well. Kirsty is the wicked stepmother, basically. Yeah.
Well, Julia is the stepmother. Yes.
Oh no, I said that backwards, didn't I? Yes, Julia is the stepmother. And we flash back to see when Frank and Julia met. And they hit it off, and Frank is seductive, and they immediately have sex. And she loved Frank way more than her husband Larry, the brother. But Larry doesn't know this. And while she's there reminiscing, thinking about Frank, Larry cuts his hand on a nail and bleeds all over the place. Well, the blood soaks into the floor. It's the floor of the room where Frank died, and we see a tiny heart start beating under the floor that the blood activated. And cells grow and arms grow, and a thing crawls out of the floor that looks vaguely human.
Vaguely?
Yes. Well, that night, they've moved in a bit, and Julia finds the thing upstairs, and it knows her name.
Julia.
It's Frank. He's come back. He wants her to help him, and he needs more blood to come back fully. Like some blood magic is working here. And she thinks about it for a bit, but she doesn't think about it very
anybody.
long.
That's terrible. I would
That's
never.
wrong.
I would never.
But for Frank,
Frank.
I really like Frank. Yeah, okay, yeah. So the next day, she goes to a bar when Larry's out and picks up a man and brings him home. And she leads him upstairs, and she kills him with a hammer and lets Frank do the thing with the body, just basically, slurping all the blood out. And he becomes more intact. Yeah. But he still needs more, since he has no skin. He looks pretty awful.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. But every drop of blood she spills, gives him more flesh. She fleshes out more. So he's gradually coming back.
Literally fleshes out more. That's where that phrase comes from.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And he says it'll only take one or two more victims, and she's on board. And they need to, he tells her what happened with the Cenobites, and they need to hurry before they come and find him,
he's kind of
escaped. That he's escaped. Yeah, he found a loophole. Yeah. Well, Kirsty, the daughter, works at a pet store, and she finds a scary-looking man come in who eats crickets out of the cage, which is kind of weird. Yeah. Julia brings home another man, and she's getting more used to it. Clearly she's getting more comfortable with this. And Frank is looking more solid and even has a little bit of skin now. And he shows Julia the box. It opens doors to the pleasures of heaven and hell, he explains.
I have yet to see this box give anybody any pleasure.
Well,
I guess it depends on what you like.
Some
people are into those fish hooks.
Yeah, sadism and pain and pleasure, and all. Well, how's he put it? Pain and pleasure, all. Until you can't tell the difference which is which. Larry comes home, hears a noise upstairs, and goes upstairs to investigate. He goes into Frank's room, but Frank's not there. And Julia's like, oh. You could see her, oh. This isn't good.
She was expecting him to walk in and find Larry.
Yeah, Frank, yeah. So anyway, Larry's in the mood, and they go to bed, and Julia and Larry are doing it. He's on top, face down, and Julia's on her back and looks over and sees Frank coming out of the closet with a dead rat in his hand and flicks open his switchblade and threateningly, is slicing at the rat. And it's kind of darkly amusing because she's like, no, stop, don't. And, the implication is...
What?
Freddie,
in the middle of this.
Implication is Frank's going to, stab Larry if she doesn't knock it off because, Frank and... she's like, no, I can't bear it. And, and Larry thinks she's, getting more excited. And that's
used to like it.
It's not, I don't understand you anymore, Julia. And then Frank ducks back in the closet and he, and Larry stomps off. And then Kirsty comes over next day, and just as Julia takes another man inside with her.
Caught in the act.
Yeah, and she jumps to the obvious conclusion that Julia's sleeping around, but she hears screaming coming from inside.
It doesn't negate anything.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Kirsty goes up inside and confronts Frank. They fight, and she grabs the puzzle box, and she throws it out the window, which he doesn't like.
No.
Yeah, and she runs out and takes the box away, but soon as, she passes out on the street from shock. And wakes up in the hospital. The doctor places the puzzle box on the nightstand, leaves her alone.
Not good.
The police will be by to question her soon. But this puzzle box, so she starts, it's a puzzle, starts doing the circles and the thing. And the
Frank
wall
had been working that
opens.
puzzle for years, and she picked it up for like a minute, and it works.
She's special. She's instinctive about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the wall literally opens, revealing a passage, and she goes in and finds the Cenobites. Pinhead explains that they want to take her back with them. And
Nobody ever calls him Pinhead.
No.
It's just the way they describe him.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And they've got her, and they're one of them's holding her while Pinhead, describes what they're going to do to her, and she offers to, hey, Frank, you need Frank, don't you? What? He escaped us? Yes. Well, she's going to give him Frank in return for her freedom. And they do want him back.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So, Larry comes home, and Julia decides she's avoided it long enough. She's going to give Larry to Frank. And Kirsty runs to the house to warn Larry, and they embrace. And she doesn't notice that Larry's kind of covered with blood, especially around his scalp line. And, it's too late. It's not Larry. It's Frank wearing Larry's skin. Ew. And it doesn't take her long to figure that out. Yeah.
Now, here's a question. Was he literally wearing Larry's skin? Was that his face pulled up over his,
Yes.
or had he regenerated to look more like Larry?
No, he skinned Larry, because you see the body. You see Larry's body.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
all,
he
it's
hadn't
all
drained him
skinless.
yet. Okay.
Yeah, it's all skinless. Yeah, he literally took Larry, he peeled Larry and was wearing his skin, yeah.
It looked a little too good for that.
Yeah, it did, but
I know if you put somebody's face over your face, it doesn't look that realistic.
No.
Don't ask me how I know these things.
Yeah. Anyway, Frank accidentally stabs Julia, but it doesn't make much difference to him. Yeah.
He got what he needed.
He got what he wanted. He can get the blood. Yeah. And he chases Kirsty around the house until he corners her in the attic room, and then the Cenobites come for him. Frank tries to kill Kirsty one more time, but the chains and the fish hooks get him first.
That pleasure business, yes,
Yeah,
with the chains and fish hooks.
Yeah, and the Cenobites do their work quickly and come after Kirsty, but she grabs the puzzle box and starts working it, as Pinhead says, "We have such sights to show you." An iconic line. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she twists the box, and she solves it to send them away. Yeah. And Kirsty and her boyfriend escape the house and the monsters from hell. And Kirsty, then they go out and she sees a fire and throws the box into the fire, and the weird homeless guy approaches and takes it out of the fire. He burns up and becomes like a demon dragon thing and flies off with the box. Apparently he was some kind of caretaker of the box.
Very strange.
Yeah. And then we see the Eastern merchant selling the box to another seeker.
Round 2.
Yeah.
Or 2000, whichever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, all right. No idea what was up with the homeless guy turning into a dragon. Like you say, he's probably a caretaker. That does kind of explain it.
Yeah, keeper of the box. And I read that they had some budget issues toward the end, that they basically run out of money, and that animation was kind of done by Clive Barker and somebody else, and they kind of had to hand draw it.
Oh, the dragon animation.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
no, I thought they meant the bit there with Larry and Frank, or with Frank at the end.
No, the homeless guy.
Oh, I think I want to see that scene again now.
The demon thing. Yeah, whatever he was.
Well, this is easily the lowest budget of the 4 films we're looking at this week. Clive Barker even explains that he ran out of money at the end and did the final animations on his own.
See, you've got that. You've got that in your notes.
Still, the low-budget look really makes this one feel grittier and darker. I think the cheapness helps a lot. Makes it feel kind of dirty.
Yes.
Which kind of fits. It's brilliantly shot and perfectly paced. The creatures look good, and they get a lot of screen time. This is another one of those films that was great just because it was so different. The monster can't even leave the house, Frank, so he has to get Julia to kill for him. Then we find out that he's not the monster, he's just another victim trying to escape hell. The visions of hell, or whatever it's called, it's not really explained in this film, are fun and terrifying, and the Cenobites are so distinctive that it's not hard to think about them long after the film ends. What are they all about? You got the one with the teeth, you got the one with the pins, you got the fat one, you got the woman with her throat cut out, you got the two with their heads stuck together. What are these people?
Demons to some, angels to others, as Pinhead says.
That's right.
Yes.
They offer so much unexplained possibility that this film really needed a sequel.
And guess what? We had many sequels.
What are they up to now, like 10? We did Terminator Judgment like way back in the beginning of our podcast. I don't know if there's a newer one since. I don't think there is, but yeah, they're still going. Well, usually about the middle of the show, we talk about a short film. And this week we've got our top 4 of all-time films. And we've got a short film which is, it's good. It's not maybe in the all-time 10 or anything. It's here because it's our time for our short film.
But it's really terrific.
It is good.
Yeah.
Called Goodnight Halloween from 2020. So we're a couple weeks behind on this one. Directed by Luther Bogle-Jones. Directed by Andrew Cleverly. Stars John Daniel Byrne, Natasha Lamper, Christopher Dingle, and Stuart Barham. 13.5 minutes, and there's a link in the show notes that'll take you to it on YouTube. What'd you think?
I liked it a lot. And it's got a premise that I generally always enjoy, that it's an alternate reality, an alternate timeline.
It clearly is, yes.
Yeah. And it's clever how they so quickly establish that with, there's a lot of text on screens, computer screens, that are, oh, you've got this in your note, yeah. Yeah, that's, K is used instead of C a lot. It's still readable, but it's funky English. It's cool how they did it. You know, you can tell that it's not the right English, but it's still English and readable. And well, you're going to mention the field of crosses on the flag too. But,
yeah, things have changed.
Yeah. Carry on, yeah. Alternate timeline.
So it's 1986 in Detroit, Michigan. And I spelled Michigan wrong. It's Mikhigan, according to this.
Right.
The news explained that a bunch of creatures have been killed in Detroit. This was the last significant nest of creatures. We get small hints that things aren't quite normal. The United States flag has little crosses instead of stars, and all the words are spelled with a K instead of the letter C. Nothing really important there, but it shows us that it is an alternate world. The monsters do something like Skype calls to each other in 1986.
See, another alternate timeline.
We didn't have Skype.
We didn't have
in
technology
1986.
like that in 1986, no.
So the warty woman witch-faced monster tells the plant man that she thinks the others are all dead. The vampire then joins the call, and the plant man blames him for being a leak and a traitor. They argue about who the real traitor is.
And the monsters in this one are not really the monsters.
No,
the people are.
They're the hunted.
Yeah.
Daniel calls and explains that he's on the run. Plant Man explains that Daniel is the only one who got out. Planty is planning to upload the evidence telling the truth about Krona. Krona is... What is Krona? The task force, I guess.
Christian Right of North America.
Okay.
Or something. I think that's what it was. Christian with a K.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they're the group that hunts the monsters.
And they're basically the U.S. government.
A branch, at least, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, someone gets Daniel before the call is completed. Will the monsters survive? Okay, well, I'm not sure why this is set in 1986, since they all seem to be using very modern-looking computers for communications.
I think just another way to show us a parallel alternate timeline.
Okay. From the description, there are intended parallels between this story and the world of 2020 with the coronavirus and the right-wing agendas. According to the actual show notes, that's intentional here, not coincidence. The Wart woman, who I guess is a witch, gives a good performance.
Well, they mentioned that. She can't. Yeah. She lost her power of flight. You notice there was a broom in the background leaning against the wall.
Didn't notice the broom.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? Just sweep up, I guess. But the others are kind of hindered by their masks.
Good mask, though. The plant guy, that was good makeup. Yeah.
Still, it's written well and looks good. The world is interesting, and it'd be nice to see more of it. This story, or segment of a story, is pretty brief. There is a full story here, but the world suggests a lot more.
Yeah, more would have been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have The Thing.
Oh, my number one. Okay.
The Thing from Another World.
So your number 2 film was Nightmare on Elm Street. Your number 1 film was Hellraiser. My number 2 was Alien. And my number 1 is
The Thing.
The Thing
from 1982.
Yes. And of course, you said you liked Alien, and yeah, you like both of these a lot.
Very much.
I've revised mine to throw Hellraiser in there. So yeah, these are pretty much our top 4, I would guess. Or pretty close to it.
Yeah.
Directed by John Carpenter, written by Bill Lancaster and John Campbell Jr. Did you ever read that old 1950s story?
I did.
I have
the one
to,
it's based
yes.
on? Yeah.
Stars Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, Keith David. Hour and 49 minutes. Okay, so what do you think of The Thing?
Creepy.
Very, yes.
It was very creepy. And again, that claustrophobic feeling of being trapped and, what are you going to do against this thing?
It's the perfect setting.
Yeah,
it
really
is. Again, like Alien, they're isolated. Isolation is a big thing in some of these movies.
Yeah, it is.
A Nightmare on Elm Street wouldn't have been the same if she hadn't had bars on the windows and got trapped inside. Isolation is a big deal. All right, well, we begin with a shot set in space. A flying saucer spins out of control, crashing on planet Earth as the credits roll. We then open in Antarctica, winter 1982. A Norwegian, or the crazy Swedes, the helicopter flies along, shooting at a dog that runs beneath it on the ground. The dog runs to United States Science Base number 4, which is odd because when they get on the radio and call people, they call themselves Base 35 or something like that.
Must be an old sign.
Yeah, I've forgotten the number, but it's definitely not number 4. The helicopter starts throwing grenades at the dog, which gets the men on the ground all excited. The helicopter explodes, and the Norwegian starts shooting at the dog, who is standing behind the man.
Yeah, accidentally shoots one of the guys at the U.S. base.
Gary, the base commander, kills the Norwegian. No one has any explanation for what just happened. The radio isn't getting through to anyone right now. Doc wants to fly to the Norwegian base to see what happened, and MacReady flies him there in their helicopter. As the base settles in and gets back to work, the dog roams the base. And already I've mentioned Gary and MacReady and Doc.
We know these people's names.
These people have names.
They're real people and real
just like
characters
Alien.
that you start caring about right away.
And they tell you the names right. They don't have it on their... Well, some of them do have their names on their shirts.
Some of them
yeah.
do. Yeah.
When Doc and MacReady explore Norway's base, they find bodies and the remains of a fire. They find a block of ice with nothing inside. It looks like the Norwegians dug up something and let it out of the ice. Outside, they find a weird pile of bodies that have been burned, but they don't look quite right.
Yeah.
Well,
like a composite of different creatures.
Merged and twisted.
Yeah.
The dog watches as the 2 men bring back one of the bodies. Clark, another named character, who takes care of the base dogs, lets the new dog, the one who is uninjured, in with theirs. Up until this point, the dog had the freedom to run through the whole base. The dog, which doesn't seem unusual to me, and they made a big deal out of that later on, you let that dog roam the base.
They didn't know any better at the time.
Well, they didn't know better at the time, but why would they care if it was just a dog? They made it sound like it was some big mistake he'd made.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Well, the dog enters the cage and almost immediately starts scaring the other dogs until it splits open and shoots tentacles everywhere.
It's not really
That is
a dog.
a really cool scene.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Clark goes to investigate the noise and finds a monster in the cage. Niles comes in and kills it with his flamethrower. Blair examines the thing from the cage and determines that it was trying to copy the other dogs. They were lucky enough to find it before it was able to finish. Blair starts looking at Clark funny since Clark was alone with that dog for a couple hours.
Yeah, and the dog was wandering all over, and who knows who had contact with the dog
What?
alone.
I smell paranoia.
Well, and there's one scene that Carpenter filmed that way on purpose, where the dog is wandering the hallways, goes into one of the quarters, and you see the shadow of a person in the room. Only their shadow. You don't know
Implying that someone has got it.
Someone had the contact with the dog, but you don't know who.
Yeah. Well, they watch the Norwegians' videotapes and find out where they were digging. They fly there and find the huge flying saucer buried under the ice. It's big. And it's been there for just about 100,000 years at least. The creature the Norwegians found crashed there long ago, crawled out of the ship, and froze to death until it was dug up recently.
Yeah, and there's not much left of the UFO as a ruin because they used thermite to try to get it out, and it reacted poorly and blew up.
Yeah.
Blew up the UFO, so there's not a lot left. But it seemed
They
like there'd
found the
still be
body.
some. I mean,
Oh,
still be
yeah.
a huge scientific,
Maybe more interesting. The alien probably would be way more interesting than the technology, though, for them, because they could study that.
Yeah. So the thing had crawled out of the ship. It was separate, that they, away from the ship. So it didn't get blown up when they blew the ship up.
I mean, if we took any of our vehicles or anything, buried it in the ice for 100,000 years, what would be left? The shell would still be there, I guess. But all the internals, the electronics and stuff would have decomposed, wouldn't it?
Seems like it. Or
Even
maybe
plastic
maybe
doesn't
it's
last
cold
that
enough.
long.
Yeah, 100,000 years is a mighty long time.
Yeah, it's a very long time.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Blair estimates that there's a 75% chance that someone in their base has been infected. If this thing got back to civilization, it would be world-ending.
Yeah, he does the math on, if it's infectious and, once
Yeah.
it gets out, how quickly the world would end.
Badly.
Yeah.
Windows and Bennings put the remains in the storeroom. Windows goes to get something, and the thing starts moving, with Bennings alone in the
Not
room.
really dead. Yeah.
Blair has locked himself in his lab, isolating himself from the others. Windows walks in as Bennings is halfway changed. No doubt about what it's doing now. They see him halfway there. They chase Bennings out into the snow and burn him. Then they burn all of the rest of the remains. Just in case.
Who else has been impersonated?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Blair smashes the helicopter, tractor, kills the dogs and the radio so no one can leave. He wants to keep the thing from spreading. They lock Blair in the tool shed to keep him from hurting anyone else. Blair warns McCready to watch Clark. Watch him close. Doc thinks he can come up with a blood test to see who's human and who isn't.
But it would require blood.
It would.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's some blood in the lab. There's some bags of blood.
Except there's not.
Oh, because
somebody got to the blood.
Knew that and sabotaged it.
Yeah.
So definitely somebody is an alien. But it's but they're perfect copies, so you can't tell.
But the blood that would be in the refrigerator would have been older blood from a few days ago at the very most recent.
Well, that's what they're talking about. It would have been, they knew that blood was human.
Uh-huh.
So he was talking about an antibody test to compare everybody's blood to that blood. To see if there was any mismatch.
Too bad there's not a simpler way to do it.
Yeah, well, and they find one, fortunately. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of arguing and fighting as they start to panic. Doc, Gary, and Clark are the prime suspects, so they're sedated and tied up. Fuchs finds McCready's tattered long johns outside and assumes he's been changed. Meanwhile, Blair says he's feeling much better now, and can he come back inside? They soon find Fuchs' body burned outside. Norris has a heart attack. Notice all these characters have names.
They do.
I knew the
That's
names
great.
as I was watching.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen this a dozen times, but you pick up the names and you know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Norris has a heart attack, and Doc starts working on him. When he tries to use the shock paddles, Norris's belly grows teeth and kills the Doc. That was a cool scene. Yes.
Yeah.
McCready fries it, but the head separates, grows legs, and tries to crawl away. They fry it as well. So you got the belly eating the arms. That's a good scene. You got the head crawling away, which just extends on the good. It just goes on and on.
The alien can be a perfect copy until it decides not to be.
Yeah, it can be just a head. Finally, they draw everyone's blood and try a weird test. They burn the blood with a hot wire, assuming that the blood will react to heat.
Because every part of the alien is living tissue, unlike blood.
The head tried to crawl away on its own. What will the blood do?
Yeah.
After testing some of the men, they do one after the other with a blood test, and nothing happens. So the stupid blood test must not work.
Yeah, and it's funny.
They'd all given up on it.
A darkly humorous moment because he's so like just get it over with, sticks it in, and the blood screeches and flies out of the dish, scares the crap out of everybody, and then all hell breaks loose again.
Palmer reveals himself to be one of the monsters. Palmer then kills Windows while the others mostly scream. They're tied to the couch.
Yeah.
MacReady shoots it with his flamethrower and finishes it off with dynamite. Everyone else passes the test. They go out to the tool shed to give Blair the test, and Blair's been busy. Beneath the shed, they find a tunnel, and inside the tunnel, they find a small spaceship under construction. Blair's building a way home.
Or at least a way...
Some kind of machine. Maybe it was a communications device.
Well, no, they said it was some kind of ship.
Okay.
But it could have been just something to fly back to civilization, not into space
spread himself
necessarily.
Further.
Yeah.
Where was he trying to go? Any place but here.
Yep.
Childs runs off into the night. MacReady says the thing just wants to freeze now. Spring's coming. The rescue party will find them and take them home. What's left of them.
Take the bodies home. Yeah.
They was dug up from the ice once. It worked before.
Mm-hmm.
When the rescue team finds them in the spring, they'll take it home. All it has to do is sleep in the snow until then. None of them are going to get out of this alive.
None of them can.
MacReady, Knowles, and Gary set fire to everything. Blair kills Gary and then attacks the other two, but they kill it with dynamite. We then get to see the big creature with the heads of dogs and men and lots of tentacles. MacReady then blows up everything. MacReady comes across Childs outside, who claims to have been chasing Blair. It's just the two of them now. Are they both human? Are they both alien? Probably not, but we don't know. They've lost all shelter and supplies, so they're both going to freeze to death very soon, or at least until the rescue party comes in the spring. All right. And there's this thing going around that I read on the internet, which I watched for this time.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, MacReady pulls out a bottle of alcohol and hands it to Childs, and Child just drinks it. And somebody said that it was full of kerosene because they were using it as Molotov cocktails, and he drank the kerosene and didn't react.
I don't think that's right, though.
I don't think so either. I think if that were the case, it would have been more obvious.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little too subtle. Well, a big part of the atmosphere here are the sounds of the creature. It's part howl, part scream, and part alien. It's a really good sound effect.
Mm-hmm. It is.
The way the characters react to the dead bits of the creature, it must really smell terrible, too. It's all very effective. The soundtrack is excellent, as distinctive as any other John Carpenter movie.
But it's not a John Carpenter soundtrack.
It's not.
He
didn't
hired
do
somebody else to do it. Yeah, it's reminiscent of his work. But
John Carpenter approved its music.
Yeah.
Much as in the review of Alien, each of the characters has a known name and a very distinctive personality. We see enough of each character to get to know their personalities a little. There's a lot of people in this, and they all have names. You can tell them all apart. Yeah, it's very, very well done.
And there was almost one woman in it. They're all guys.
Uh-huh.
She got pregnant. And
the actress, you mean?
Yeah, the actress did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know which character?
No, right offhand I don't.
Okay. Hey, Palmer, you used to be a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. They may not have even had their parts all cast yet. Well, the scene where Norris kills Doc, almost immediately followed by the blood test on the couch scene, is a really suspenseful thrill ride, and these scenes just make the film for me. That is worth the price of admission alone.
Mm-hmm.
The creature effects are really good, and as you said before, they are all practical, and after 38 years, they still hold up really, really well.
They hold up.
Yeah, they do.
Really well.
Practical effects are just so much better than computer effects.
They do tend to last better.
They do.
Hold up better.
How many computer effects have you seen from just 10 years ago that just look crappy?
You can so obviously tell they're CGI.
Yeah. Yeah, well, a lot of that has to do with 4K and HD and stuff. But
it does, but... Yeah,
practical works.
Practical holds up.
The growing paranoia, the claustrophobia, the possible end-of-the-world scenario, And just the omnipresent danger of living in Antarctica by itself makes this one of the most effective horror films ever.
Yep. Good stuff.
All right. And over the next several months, we will be watching others of our favorite movie lists. And we're not going to get into the list right now, but...
And some of our favorites are ones that aren't necessarily big hits.
True.
I've got one or two that I just love, and yeah, they're not big hits at all.
Well, I think for the most part, we have tried to avoid the big budget horror films. Like these four are all major studio releases. These aren't exactly indie.
And they're iconic and super well known.
Yeah. The best of the best for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, that is our show for this time. Episode 100 draws to a funeral close. But get ready for next week, where we'll be watching some more classics. What do we got?
Well, there's The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Ow!
And Creepshow Holiday Special.
Running a little late on that one.
A little bit, but yeah, we saw it.
It's still worth watching, even if you're watching it in February.
Yep. And we have The Host and Breakdown from 2020.
All from 2020. We've also got a short called The Day of the Pigs.
Snort.
Okay. So I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.